Okay, now we should be back. Welcome back, fight fans. It's your boy Blue here. I did stream for about 15 minutes or so. There was no audio. I don't know what the fuck was going on. This shit kind of happens when you're streaming. I remember shit like this happening when I was doing the video game streaming as well. Hopefully it works now. I am going to quickly check this on YouTube just to see that I actually hear some audio. Hold on a sec. Just to make sure it's working. Because obviously I don't want to be doing the same thing again. YouTube, just to see. There we go. Heard myself. We are good. We are back. And yeah, I will now restart the whole presentation, I guess. Oh yeah, now I need to, of course, plug the laptop in. Okay. Fucking hell. This is what happens when you want to do cool shit. You gotta deal with the consequences sometimes. Okay, so we're back. I got my remote. Everything is fixed. New video camera. Everything is all good now, I guess. Hopefully. And then the camera also should not be, you know, fucking around like with us like it was before. So hopefully, well, I know that that's all fixed now because I did a stream for 10 minutes and it was totally fine. So we're gonna jump right on in to the bets. Don't want to waste any time. We're already 20 minutes behind. So let's jump right on in to it. So first, we'll recap the best bets of last week, UFC Vegas 85. Let's see how that went for us. First up is the triple play. That's where we picked three of the best people of last week. Three of the people that we gave the edge to. And that ended up being last week. Hold on a sec. It was Jung Yong Lee, Molly McCann, and Natalia Silva. That ended up being a huge W for us. Amazing, amazing start. That was the only good part of the betting for us last week, but it was still a W. I'll take it. And that brings us to 6 and 7 with the triple play, which really, in terms of parlays, it's actually really not that bad. I mean, 6 and 7 for 3-leg parlays. If that would be in any other sport, that would be pretty miraculous. But for me, that's not very good, and you'll see why as well. Right here, I've got the units now. It's negative 1.13. So I mean, it's not really a huge loss. I mean, we're betting 1 unit every week. So really, you know, last week we would have been even at 0.13. So it's not like we're way in the hole or anything. Remember, that's after, 13 of them? And we're negative 1.13 now, and we were even last week. Really not all that bad, but definitely hope to be doing much better in the future. Next up was the Grand Slam, and that, of course, is 4 fighters instead of 3. And shockingly... Oh, didn't hit the button. Shockingly, I actually have a winning record there at 7 and 6, which is, again, that's pretty surprising considering the triple play is a losing record. So you'd imagine 4 legs instead of 3. Obviously, if you have a winning record, you definitely got some profit there, and we sure do. That is 2.7 units up, and that was after losing half a unit last week. And by the way, if I'm only betting half a unit a week on this, I could actually lose 5 of these in a row and still be even. So that's pretty good. I'm really happy with that. Really happy with the way that's working out. Yeah, but as I mentioned, this week not a win. That ended up being Thomas Peterson, Jung Yong Lee, Khizriev and Maxim. Peterson, of course, lost. Made the cardinal sin. Oh, the huge mistake. I can't believe I did this again. I'll get into it more later with the sniper pick, but huge mistake there. Jung Yong Lee, W, knew he was going to take us the win. He should have really been the sniper pick, and I was really thinking that. I was even kind of thinking that last week. I was like, should I be picking Jung Yong Lee for the sniper pick instead of Thomas Peterson here? Whatever. It happened. I'll take the L. Hopefully we'll just be stacking up those wins from now on. And I mean, I've stacked up the wins in the past. Why not do it again? And then Khizriev, of course, no contest. That was like 11 seconds into the fight or something like that with the eye poke. And then Maxim was the last one, and he lost as well. Yeah, I don't know. There's not really too much to say about that. I figured that was going to be one of the tougher ones. I even did say I was really mainly choosing him because he was undefeated, and Charles Johnson has not been good in the past. So yeah, that's why he was only in the 4-leg and not the triple play and not really anything else. But yeah, so that was an L. And of course that, but it doesn't matter because we're still in the green. So I'm all okay with that. Next up was, by the way, this was clunkier than the first time I did it. This was a lot smoother when I streamed this the first time, but it's okay. I digress. Next up is the top dog. That is where I pick the best underdog of the week. A tall task to do, but not for this guy because we've got a great winning record of 9-4, and that was actually after a loss last week because I went with the Doberman himself, one of my favorites, Drew Dober. Sadly did not get the win, but it was a pretty close fight. He had a lot of chances. I think he got a knockdown in there. He definitely stumbled him a few times. Very close fight. Really just couldn't overcome the grappling, so he got pinned down a couple of times there. And we took the L. But again, 9-4, I will take that any day of the week. That is amazing for picking underdogs. It's so amazing, in fact, that it is by far my best category at 6 units up, which means, I mean, like I said, I could lose the next 6 in a row and I would be dead even because I only put 1 unit on this every single week. So I could not be happier with this, truly. Nothing else to say. Super, super happy with that. And that brings us to the sniper pick. Yikes. We've been having a couple of problems with this. I think, honestly, and this is where I said I was going to get into it a little bit. This was Thomas Peterson. I don't want... I might have gotten a little bit cocky. Maybe that's what it was. Because again, I said this in the stream that no longer exists because I deleted it. But I did at one point have over 20 sniper picks in a row. So truly, I really do not take very many L's in this. But now, since I've started doing this on this show, I've struggled a little bit. 9-4, that is honestly terrible for me. That is painful to see. I was truly hoping to be at about 10-2, 11-2, 12-3, somewhere around there. So seeing a 9-4, which was the same record as the underdogs, not good. Not good in my mind at all. And up until last week, we were almost even. We were at -0.5, but because we put 7 units down on the sniper pick, because that's what the sniper pick is, it's all confidence, all balls to the wall. We're 7.5 units down now. But again, that is because of 1 week. That was last week. I fucked up. And the part where I fucked up is I had this rule, the cardinal rule, the golden rule, or maybe the blue chrome rule, I don't know, is you do not pick the sniper pick when they are making their debut. You do not make the sniper pick somebody making their debut, and that's exactly what I did. I put Peterson in there. He was making his debut against Pogues. Didn't really know, you never know how good these guys are. Made the dumbest mistake. I said I would never do it again, and I did it, and I paid the price. That's what happens. So seriously, this time, fucking drill it into my head. I will not be making that mistake again. Unless it's like a Bo Nickel type, in which case it's like, okay, you know what? They're going to win no matter what. I'll give it to them. But if it's anybody else other than somebody like that, they're not getting the sniper pick on their debut. Huge mistake. And it cost us. I mean, now we're 7 units down because of that. Brutal. Absolutely brutal. But the benefit of the sniper pick is that because I win them so much, it actually is very easy to stack those units back up, and hopefully we can get that going again this week, because if we don't, I've got a real problem. But I've also never lost 2 in a row. I've never lost 2 sniper picks in a row. I don't plan to start now, knock on wood. Hopefully I didn't just jinx myself there, but yeah. And that brings us to an all-time total of... I mean, no need really for the fireworks, but I like it anyway. 007 himself. I'm James Bond. Bond. James Blue. No. Beard. Bluebeard. 007. I mean, it's a little bit of profit. Not much really. But again, considering I lost 7.5 units last week, you can tell I was in the green. I was 7.5 units up, and now here we are. You know, 007, we'll just, I mean, it's basically a clean restart. That's really all I've done. I've just cleaned the slate, wiped it clean. We're now at 0, so there we go. There you are. You're all caught up. This is the beginning of the rest of your life. That's a RuPaul lyric. I love Drag Race. Anyway, so those are the best bets, and we will now move on to a recap of The Edge. So I gave out, I believe, how many edges did I give out? We'll find out. I think it was 7 or 8 edges I gave out last week. I gave out a few more this week, but we will do a quick recap of The Edge. So what is The Edge? That's where I think this person really should win. I don't always give out an edge. Could be even. I do that quite a bit, you know, if you really can't tell. But if I think this person really should win, like really should win, I would say it's about a 65% confidence to, 65 to 70% of the time that person should win. So like if it's a trilogy, that person should win 2 out of the 3 times. That's really the confidence level that we're working with here, bare minimum, of course, and then everybody above that, So how did we do? Well, let's find out. Not very well. Peterson, of course. That was the first fight of the night. Obviously, we discussed this already. Pogues really just showed that he's more experienced, pretty well-rounded, and got the cardio and everything. Peterson just couldn't get past it. He's just really not as good as I thought he was, and that most other people thought he was. As well. And Pogues is maybe a bit better than we thought. So that was a rough way to start. But Jung Young Lee, my boy, the Korean Tiger, I believe his name is, amazing win. Super good. And I specifically said this is some guy, like, he's the real deal. Like, we will see him in the top 15 at some point. He is extremely good, extremely dangerous. And I actually said last week that he was the best person to come off Road to UFC. I do have to take that back. I have to rein that in. He's the second best, only behind Rinya Nakamura, who, by the way, is fighting next week. So I will be talking about Rinya Nakamura next week, but he is the best. Jung Young Lee, a close second, a very close second, because he is very good. I mean, it was insane watching him on Road to UFC. So he easily got the win, dominated Builder when he wasn't getting pushed into the fence, and that's what Builder does. And that is actually how Lee struggled on the Road to UFC as well, was a little bit of clinch along the fence. That seems to be his only weakness, so I hope he can fix that, because he is so good other than that. But we're 1-1 on the night so far. That brought us to Maxim. I mean, holy shit. He almost got a KO early, by the way, so he almost won this, and then just completely fell apart. I don't know how Charles Johnson keeps fucking me over like this. I really cannot believe this. because I don't think I've ever picked a Charles Johnson fight correctly, and that's like going, I think it's like 0-6 now. I know I picked against him in Jalga Zhumagulov. He beat him. I picked Charles Johnson in, I think, 3 different fights. He lost all of those. I mean, just brutal, absolutely brutal picks for Charles Johnson. I don't know how he keeps screwing me over like this. I don't even know. I really don't even know. And now he beat an undefeated 17-0 guy. I don't know how he keeps doing this to me, but he's doing it. So we were 1-2 at this point. Not a good start. But Molly McCann evens it up. Easy win. I mean, dominated. Then ended up dislocating Belbita's arm. Nasty sub. Holy shit. Way better than the first time they met. I did specifically say, I was like, she did grapple in the first one. I could see her maybe grappling again. And that's exactly what she did. I didn't see a finish coming like that. I truly did not see that one coming. Amazing. Like, well done for Molly McCann. I really hope that she can keep this going at 115. Because, you know, looking back, and I wasn't really thinking it too much at the time because of how big she is. But, you know, looking back, you kind of realize, like, you know, she really was undersized at 125, and she is much more suited to this weight class. So I really can't wait to see what she's got to do here, because she is good. She's exciting. And I mean, if she can do that, I mean, you know, Belbita's not necessarily a grappler by any means, but if she can do something like that, you know, maybe there really is hope for, well, definitely top 15, but maybe even top 10 to top 5 someday. I really could see that happening if she can keep something like that up. Very impressed by Molly McCann. Then we went to, I don't know if this was the main card or not yet. It might have been. Gilbert Urbina. I think it was, yeah, Gilbert Urbina. There's a lot of Urbinas. Gilbert Urbina took another L for us. Fucking hell. I think, honestly, the mistake here this week is I gave out a little bit too many to people that I wasn't 100% sure on. This one was one where it was like, it's a lot closer than I think, and I don't know if I should give it out, but I gave it out anyway. So that was my mistake. I probably shouldn't have given out the edge here, you know, but hey, we did it. I gave it out and I paid the price again. Again, I will take my L, you know, on the chin. Sucks. I can give excuses all I want because they're probably pretty accurate excuses that I probably shouldn't have done it, but still, I will take the L on the chin. It still goes on the record. We learn from it. And we move on. Knocked out, brutal. He's probably getting cut. I mean, let's be real, because the other guy was at lightweight before. Who was it? Radke. Radke was at lightweight before, and he got knocked out by him. I don't even think Radke's that good. So, brutal. I think he's probably going to... We might not see Gilbert Urbina again anytime soon, or maybe one more time, and then that's it. Then, of course, we had the... Oh, okay, I guess I have to point it directly at the laptop. Kizriev... Sadly, of course, that was a no contest, so that's in white. And it's you know, it's an outline in green because it's not a complete loss. You know, we didn't lose any money on it. It's a no contest. We're all good. Just sucks. Because I really think we were going to get a good win there. I mean, Kizriev is so good. So good. But hey, all right. Just counts as nothing. That's a push. So we move on to Natalia Silva. And that fight went literally exactly how I said it was going to. I said it was going to be close. It was fairly close. And Silva did use her speed and her striking exactly like I said. So no surprises in that one. She gets the win. And like I said, really does look like a future champion. And if not a champion, I mean, she's definitely going to be top 5 for sure very soon. And she'll probably be, you know, she'll probably be one of those people like Araujo, actually. Well, actually, I think Araujo has been in the top 15 for a while. But she probably will be one of those people that will be in the top 15 for the next 5-8 years. I mean, she is that kind of person that's just consistently very good. Could not be more impressed by Natalia Silva. And she's so cute. I mean, she's one of my faves. She really is. I love Natalia Silva. But anyway, so that brings us to a record of... Give it to me. Give it to me now. 8-6. Not great. to be honest. I mean, yes, it's a winning record. Yes, that's 2 winning weeks in a row. I mean, it was an even week. It was 3-3 this week, so it wasn't necessarily a winning week. It was a push. I don't like 8-6. That's pretty bad for me, but you know what? It's still a winning record. We have not had a losing week yet out of the 2 weeks that I've done this, so I'll take it. I'll take the win. It's just not as good as I was hoping, so hopefully we can bump up those numbers this week. I refuse to end at about a 50% rate with 8-6. I refuse to let that happen. We move on. And I fucked up the animations. That's great. That's great to know. Fuck. Fucked up the animations. God damn. That's always one of my favorite animations too. Whatever. It's Hermanson. Now I fucked up his name. Hermanson. Pfeiffer. I'm messing everything up today. Good Lord. It's UFC Vegas 86. Let's jump right onto it and give the edge out to all these fine folks. The first matchup of the night is Daniel Marcos and Aorichi Lang. See, that's what it's supposed to look like. Can't believe I messed that up. It's bantamweight. Let's get right on into it with Daniel Marcos. He's 15-0. Hopefully this is not another Azat Maxim incident like last week. I mean, we don't want to lose on another undefeated fighter. But 15-0, he got a split decision over Davy Grant in his last one. It was pretty close. Some people thought Davy Grant won. I kind of thought Daniel Marcos won, but it was very, very close. I mean, it really could have gone either way. And his huge thing, of course, is the striking, and that is exactly what kept him in the fight, of course, against Davy Grant, because Davy Grant, not really much of a grappler. Yeah. Super slick defense and offense, very good on the feet, lots of variety, decent power, not too many knockouts, but he's got good power. The grappling, though, kind of a question mark, really. We haven't really seen much of it yet. He hasn't really been taken down yet, but also hasn't really done much offensive grappling either. So really not sure how good he is, but I really also don't think that that's going to affect this matchup at all. Aorichi Lang, not really much of a grappling threat, so I don't think it's going to matter anyway, but I'll put it in there anyway just in case, because, you know, he could have used it offensively, but I don't know how good he is offensively because we haven't seen it. Then he's got his speed. He is definitely fast, and that is a problem for Aorichi Lang in this matchup. He is definitely faster than him. Moves well, very elusive, very fast strikes. That is going to help him quite a bit. And that is why the odds are set at -250 right now. And I mean, this is as of last night. I mean, all of these odds are of last night. They could have changed slightly. That's why the warning is in the description below. But they're always going to be pretty close. Yeah. And then we move on to Aorichi Lang. Very cool nickname. One of the coolest nicknames around, truly. The Mongolian Murderer. Come on, that's a dope nickname. Couldn't have made up a better nickname myself. He is 3-3 in the UFC. So, literally 50-50, hit and miss. 25-11 overall. Most of those wins, of course, regional China. I think he had probably like 5 wins in a year at a couple points. They're crazy. Crazy with their regional fights over there. And he did lose at 125 as well, by the way. This is at bantamweight. This is his new home. Can't see him ever going back down, but just keep that in mind that he did get controlled and finished. I think he got finished down at 125, but yeah. The main thing that he does is the counter striking. He is really purely a counter striker, but he does it very, very well. Hits people really hard. Lots of power, lots and lots of power, lots of accuracy to counter very well and very hard. But that's kind of a problem because that also means that he does not have a very high pace. Because he counters, he has to land. He does not really throw first, and he doesn't really throw much offense outside of that. He's really mostly countering. So he kind of has to land those heavy counters or else he loses. But he does have the benefit of being really durable, so that does give him a chance in kind of all 3 rounds. He's a pretty durable guy. Except for the Ayman Zahabi loss in Canada. That was kind of a fluke. I don't know what happened there, but he got finished in like, what was it, like 40 seconds or something like that. That was pretty shocking. But other than that, he's been very, very tough. And that's on the feet and on the ground, by the way. Very hard to knock out, very hard to submit as well. And that brings the odds for him, pointing in the wrong direction, to plus 200. So definitely a significant underdog in this matchup. So who are we giving the edge to? It is pretty close, honestly, because of their pace issues, because Marcos really doesn't have a whole lot of pace either. And I mean, if Marcos could really grapple, I think this would be pretty one-sided, but it's pretty close because they're using similar skills here. That being said, I had to go with the undefeated Daniel Marcos in this case. It's hard to go against somebody who's 15-0 when they're going against somebody who's 25-11. That's a hard sell, especially when Marcos is slicker and more offensive. So, you know, the pace, the skill of it, the movement and everything, he should be able to win here. As long as he doesn't get clipped, he should win. Because Ari Chilang just hasn't really shown much else other than counters. So I think Marcos has a very good chance of winning this. And that is the first edge of the night. Moving on to the second one of the night, the second fight of the night, I should say. It's a debuting fighter in Haider Emil going against Fernie Garcia. I believe that's his name. I only write the last names here, so I'm just doing the front names off the top of my head. First names, I should say, off the top of my head. And this is at featherweight, which is also actually very interesting because we have another weight class change. We'll get into that in a little bit because it is Fernie Garcia. It's not Haider Emil. He always fights at featherweight. And his benefit in this one is the grappling. I think, am I lagging a little bit? I think I am a little bit. That's okay. It still seems okay. And I'm not getting any warnings or anything. He is 8-0, so also undefeated from the Contender Series. So you know he's not getting the sniper pick, that's for sure. And he does have the grappling, like I said. Great grappling defense shown in Contender Series because the other guy was quite the grappler and he really was able to shut that down. I was actually pretty impressed by that. And also had his moments with the grappling as well. And that is actually how he ended up winning. He out-grappled a grappler, which is pretty impressive. Sadly, though, has not really shown much striking. I don't know if his striking is good or not. That's why the question mark is there. Because he just hasn't really actually shown it much yet at all. He kind of just strikes to get in close and grapple. And that's pretty much it. I mean, really, he's only done grappling in his last couple of fights, so it's kind of hard to tell how good he actually is. But I did put the red part there because it's like, he was kind of walking into some punches here and there, so maybe not the cleanest striker. But we truly do not know how good or how bad he actually is because we haven't really seen it yet. Another benefit, though, he definitely has the cardio, which he really showed on the Contender Series because he was getting pushed to the limit with that grappling pace. And not only did he keep up with his opponent, he actually ended up exhausting his opponent out with the grappling. So I was really impressed with the grappling and the cardio of Haider Emil, which is why he actually is sitting at a favorite right now of minus 188. Not a huge favorite, probably because of the Contender Series. We haven't really seen him yet, and he's going against Fernie Garcia, so it's a little bit closer, but he is still the favorite. And that brings us, of course, to Fernie Garcia himself. And like I said, normally at bantamweight, 135, he is moving up now. And sadly, he is 0-3 in the UFC at this point. He has lost to Journey Newson, Brady Heastand from The Ultimate Fighter, and none other than Rinya Nakamura, the greatest person out of Road to UFC so far, which again, we will see next week. So that was a pretty obvious loss, but should be said, and I'll get into this later, he did survive against Rinya Nakamura. He was not finished there, and that is very impressive, believe me. And he also, by the way, has had 4 split decisions outside of the UFC. So kind of a questionable record all the way around, where it's like, how good actually is he with 4 split decisions and 3 losses in the UFC, which is all of his UFC fights. Yeah, and how has he lost those? The grappling, or the wrestling specifically, actually. It's not even the submissions. It's really literally just the wrestling. He can defend submissions all day, and like I said, that's what that's what he did against Rinya Nakamura. But it's the wrestling of every single person so far. Journey Newson, Brady Heastand, and Rinya Nakamura has been his downfall. He has not been able to overcome that yet. So that is a huge problem. As you can imagine in this matchup, that is a huge problem. But the great equalizer is always the power, the striking in this case, of course. Lots and lots of power. He has had knockdowns in the UFC. He has had a couple different knockdowns, so he definitely does have the power, which is why this is definitely close, because we, again, have not seen the striking of Haider Emil yet, so this is very important. This is a great equalizer, it really is. And then what really makes it interesting is, of course, as I said, the durability. He's never been finished. He has never been knocked out, never been submitted. That includes, of course, Rinya Nakamura and anybody else, of course, because he's never been finished. And he is always somewhat dangerous. He, first round, second round, third round, he always has that potential to turn the tables with that power. So never counting him out. Very, very close matchup. He's at plus 150. So who is getting the edge here? It's really a pure striker versus grappler matchup as far as we can tell right now. So that means Emil could easily get a decision like all of the other 3 opponents that have gone against Fernie Garcia, using that wrestling, of course. But Garcia could also get a KO because we don't know how good Haider Emil's striking is. Or he could shut down that wrestling. Maybe Emil's wrestling isn't as good as the other 3. Or maybe he's really been working on the wrestling and he's able to shut that down and get his striking going and use the cardio. Well, Haider Emil has the cardio as well. We just don't know. So who's getting the edge here? I need to remember that I need to actually point at my laptop to do that. It's even. I don't have an edge for this one. Like I said, there's too many questions. They're both fairly one-dimensional and somewhat inexperienced, so we don't really know which way this is going to go. Seems both of those outcomes seem equally as likely, so I can't give an edge this time. This is one of those times where it's just too dang close. So we move on to the next one. Pauga himself from The Ultimate Fighter. Going against Bogdan Gushkov, one of my favorite names of all time in the UFC, Bogdan Gushkov. It's stuck in my head. I say it all the time to myself. It's just so... I love the name. And I gave him one of the cooler pictures, too. I try to give people the coolest pictures possible. That one I really like. So, let's get on right into it with, I think it's Zach Pauga? I don't know. Again, didn't write it down. I mean, he's got a pretty great, it's pretty obvious what he's going to do. He always uses the wrestling, pushes them into the fence, tries to get them down, but really mostly trying to push them into the fence. That is his huge thing. He even said that is his goal, that is his strategy for every single fight from now on. Push people into the fence and dominate them like that. And that is what he's been able to do fairly well. He's 6-2 so far, tough finalist at heavyweight. This is at light heavyweight, remember that. And he was knocked out by Muhammad Usman. He won the first round and then just got knocked out like that. Yeah, the wrestling, very good. Always pressuring forward into the clinch, on the fence, or for ground and pound. Sadly, though, I mean, he did get knocked out. The striking, not really that great. He gets hit quite a bit, rushes in quite a bit, like I said, which leads to him. That is why he gets hit a decent amount. And he has been stumbled a few times in each of his fights, and of course was knocked out by Usman, but that was at heavyweight, so, you know, we'll keep that in mind as well. But yeah, striking, not one of his finer points, but huge finer point, though. Definitely his cardio. Keeps the grappling pace and the clinch work going all 3 rounds and really not slowing down much at all. So very good over the 3 rounds. And that is why he is a slight favorite. He's minus 138. So pretty close right now on the odds. Definitely a toss-up on for the odds makers. We'll move on to Bogdan Gushkov. And he also has a very clear path to victory. And that would be the striking. I mean, he's got 10 KOs in his career. 10, count them up, 10 KOs. And 8 of them in the first round. And shockingly made his debut against Volkan Oezdemir, which is a crazy person to make your debut against. Yuri Prohaska did it as well, but Bogdan Gushkov lost when he did it. Oh well. But again, that is a crazy proposition to make your debut against somebody like that. So, I mean, really, this is definitely a massive step down in competition. So that's also a pretty interesting wrinkle here. But yeah, striking, huge deal. Obviously, the knockouts, but he is very accurate. He did actually hit Volkan Oezdemir quite a bit, which is something to say because that is Volkan's strong suit. He is a striker. So that was impressive. And lots of power. That being said, he didn't even really stumble Volkan, which concerns me a little bit because if he's a knockout guy, you'd think, and he was landing a lot, you'd think that he would be able to stumble Volkan Oezdemir a little bit. That never happened when he hit him quite a bit. So that is interesting. That is something to look out for sure. But yeah, that's still his strong suit for sure. The grappling, though, I believe is a problem. The question mark is there because we don't really know that 100%. But it is a little bit concerning because Volkan did take him down somewhat easily and did end up submitting him. I mean, it was more of a club and sub, as we call it, you know, hit him quite a bit, goes down, and then you just quickly submit him while he's dazed. So is he actually bad at grappling? We don't really know, but it's definitely not a good look. And have not seen him grappling at all, except for that fight, because tape on this guy is pretty much non-existent. So hard to tell, really hard to tell how good he is. But has a triangle choke submission win, so he's obviously got some skills in there, but the levels here we don't really know. And that kind of feeds into the last part, which is he's kind of inexperienced. I mean, we don't really know how good he is, because we've really just seen him in that one fight against Volkan Oezdemir, and that's really not a good barometer of how good he is, because Volkan Oezdemir is, I think he was still in the top 10. Maybe he was like ranked 12th or 10th or something like that. I can't remember. But he's definitely ranked, so, you know, we really cannot tell how good he actually is. And we really can't tell how good his competition was before that, because none of them were in any recognizable promotion, so it was really hard to tell how good he actually is. Yeah, so that's tough, which is why I believe these odds are so close, because we really don't know how good Bogdan Gushkov is, and he's at plus 110. Makes sense. I don't have any problem with these odds at all. They make a lot of sense. So, who's getting the edge here? Pauga or Gushkov here? Honestly, I think one of two things is going to happen here, really. Either Pauga is going to get a decision, maybe a shocking TKO, but more than likely a decision from the grappling, or is Gushkov going to get a brutal KO? Honestly, it's one of those two things, and there's really nothing in between. Truly, I cannot imagine anything else happening other than that. So, yeah. there's really only two things that could happen, and I really can't tell which one of them is going to happen, because honestly, both of those seem perfectly equally as likely. So can't really tell, and they're both so inexperienced. Like I said, Pauga 6-2. I mean, he hasn't really shown a whole lot. I mean, he hasn't really had the highest level. You know, it's really hard to tell where he's at too. And then of course Bogdan Gushkov, we really don't know how good he is at all. So there's way too many questions in here, so I gotta just give it an even here. That brings us to the next one, which is Jeremiah Wells and Max Payne Griffin. I picked an older picture of Griffin there because I just love that hair so much more than the cornrows. This just looks so much cooler. I love the afro. Looks very good on him. So I gave him that older picture. It looks great. And that's, of course, at welterweight. We will jump right on in with Jeremiah Wells, but I will have a nice sippy first of my water. So we jump right on in with Wells. He's 4-1 in the UFC. And by the way, that one loss was in his last fight. And it was pretty bizarre, if I'm being real. It was this weird submission loss. He won the first round and then actually took down Harris and was kind of doing well in the exchange, and then got into a weird... I don't remember what it was. Was it an anaconda or a triangle? Or I can't remember what it was. Maybe even an arm triangle or something like that. I can't remember what it was, but got stuck in a weird submission. Even kind of the ref was like, is he out? I can't really tell. Oh yeah, that's right. The commentators were like, I don't know if he's out or not. It's not really in. It doesn't look like he's in much danger. I didn't think he was in much danger either. And then all of a sudden he was asleep. So it was kind of like, oh, wow, okay, that was a weird one. So very strange way to lose. That's his one loss in the UFC. So really pretty decent history so far. But yeah, the grappling is his main bread and butter, let's say. Great, like really good wrestling, heavy wrestling, so much power, so much power and skill. And pretty good submissions too. Like I said, I mean, it was crazy to see him get caught like that in that submission and get slept like that. That was so weird, because he is really good. He's honestly really good at both wrestling and submissions. That's why I put grappling up there, because that's usually where I try to combine both. The striking, though, I'm not going to say it's horrible, but the technique, definitely not there. A really sloppy, really weird striking technique, but my God, does he have a lot of power. So, I mean, it's kind of an in-betweener. Is it a positive? Is it a negative? I'm not really sure. It's kind of in between. Yeah. He's still dangerous, though, that's for sure, because he hits hard, but he does get hit quite a bit sometimes. His real power, though, is his power, really. He is quite possibly the most explosive person I've ever seen. Like, he is explosive. He is a huge ball of muscle, really, that just explodes forward with strikes, strikes and takedowns. Just explosive with everything, with striking and grappling. And he stays farther away. He actually stays quite a bit farther away from people, like way out of range, and then just sprints in, goes for like basically a football tackle as hard as he can, and gets it that way. And it's not conventional at all, but my God, is it effective and entertaining to watch too, by the way. Yeah. And that also makes him pretty fast, because he's very explosive. So it's hard to see coming, because when you're that explosive, it also means you're really fast. The odds for him are at -175. So a slight favorite, but not a crazy favorite here. On the other side, Max Payne Griffin, 7-8 in UFC, so not a great record. Most losses, though, are to people that have been ranked at some point. No wins over anybody that's ranked. So, you know, Wells isn't ranked, but could he be at the bottom? We don't really know, you know. Just something to keep in mind, though, that is, he's kind of, you know, on that edge of being a gatekeeper where he's going to probably beat people outside of the top 15 and top 20, but he's going to lose every time to somebody that's in that range. Definitely the striking is what you want to watch out for. Decent power. He's a little sloppy sometimes, but he does move pretty well. I don't know. Don't know what else to say. Again, he is 7-8, so there's not going to be like crazy, like, wow, this guy's amazing. You know, probably not going to happen like that on this. Problem, though, spends a lot of time on his back foot. He does back up quite a bit. So if you're walking forward, he is definitely walking backwards. He is not going to meet you in the middle. He's not going to be walking you down. That's just not who he is, which could be a problem here. It really could be. And he does slow down that pace when he gets pressured. So that's maybe not necessarily great in this matchup. He is very durable, though. He is really hard to finish anywhere. So really hard to knock out, really hard to submit. So this is probably going to be a decision, I'm guessing. But you never know. That does make it pretty close, though. And the odds for him are at plus 140. So who's getting the edge here? As I mentioned, pretty close. They're two veterans. Similar-ish kind of history. Both kind of inconsistent. That's kind of what I mean by that. And they can both kind of have a slow pace. So that makes it a lot harder to tell who's going to win when they both have a low output. That is always the hardest scenario, let's say, to predict. But what could happen here? I mean, Wells could win with the grappling. Could get a finish anywhere, realistically. He could get a submission. He could get a knockout. He could get a decision. Really, anything could happen, especially with the grappling. Griffin could just outstrike him, and because he's slightly taller, that does always make it harder to take them down. So he could win a decision by just shutting down the grappling, and then, you know, striking from the outside. There's so many things that could happen here. Which, I mean, maybe you can already tell it's even again. It's another tough one to tell. It's really, really hard to tell who's going to win this. They're both the same age, by the way, too. They both have some pretty clear gaping issues. So really hard to tell in that scenario who's going to win. So this is another just dead even one. And we'll move on to the next one. And that would be Devin Clark and Marcin. I think it's Marcin. I don't know. I'm going to go with Marcin. So Marcin Prachniow. That doesn't sound right. Marcin? I don't know. We're going to go with Prachniow. For the name anyway. Light heavyweight, Clark, Prachniow. We move on straight into this remote is a little bit iffy. I think I really have to point it at the laptop or else it doesn't work. Devin Clark, his main thing, of course, is, well, maybe not of course, but it is the wrestling. He's very good at the wrestling part of it. Lots of pushing into the fence and takedowns. He is very good at that, and the size of him helps quite a bit. He uses his physique to his advantage, that is for sure, to get the clinch along the fence and the takedowns. Very good at that. And because of that, physique also has a lot of power there. And everything is with power. Kind of like Wells, actually. He reminds me a lot of Wells, but more polished, I would say. Everything is with power, striking and wrestling. Just power personified, just like Wells. Definitely a problem, though, is the cardio. That has been an issue. He always has less output as the fight goes on, less power after the second, and this has been a problem throughout his career. I'm not just saying this because he's big. I didn't say it about Wells because I don't think Wells has that problem. Clark does have that problem. He has shown that in the past. That being said, he is still good as the fight goes on. It's not like he just throws all of his skills out the window like some people we've seen. He's not that kind of guy, but he does slow down the output. There is that. He's just a little bit less output and slightly sloppier with the defense. That's about it. The odds for him, minus 225. I'm not sure if that's completely justified, but we'll go with that anyway. Minus 225 for Brown Bear. That's his name. For Devin Clark. That brings us to Prachnio. And I mean, there's a pretty clear advantage for him. Well, I wouldn't say an advantage, but there's a clear strength, let's say, to his style. He does karate, so he's obviously got the striking background. Very accurate, very, very fast. Lots of kicks. So very much into that karate style. That's what he is. If you've seen karate people fight, that's Prachnio. That is him. And a pretty key part of that style is the speed. They're always very, very fast, which makes striking a lot more dangerous because especially if you're a slower guy, you can really have a hard time with this. Not a whole lot of power, though. That is a critique of a lot of karate guys. They don't necessarily have a lot of power. They just have a lot of accurate, precise strikes. And they usually get KOs because they hit people a bunch of times. It's never like one bomb and they get knocked out cold. It's not like that. It's more of an accumulation of strikes. And it's the same thing here. The grappling, horrifyingly bad though. Not good at all. Got taken down a lot by Petrino. And was pushed into the fence and taken down late by Felipe Lins. Definitely a problem in his career before. And it's really just the karate style. Usually those people get taken down quite a bit because of where, I think it's their leg, the leg placement in the front. That ends up leading to them getting taken down quite a bit. And it's the same thing here. He does have a problem with that, which is probably why those odds are set at plus 175. So who is getting the edge in this one? Is it Clark? Is it Prachnio? It's pretty close again. Prachnio could shut down that wrestling and just be the faster striker for even just 2 out of the 3 rounds. That's really all he needs. I mean, he could get the decision if he does that. But Clark could also easily just roll through him with a TKO, KO, wrestling, decision, whatever. He could just roll through him like that because Prachnio has had problems with this style in the past. So who is getting the edge here? I did pick one this time. It's Devin Clark. I just think the size, the wrestling is just a bit too much. We haven't really seen Prachnio be able to handle that. And I don't really think that Prachnio can get a KO. So I've got a good feeling that Clark is going to be able to get the win with the wrestling and then just the size in general, but mostly the wrestling. So we move on with a little flourish, of course. We move on to the next one. It's the ladies. I mean, there really haven't been that many women fights this year, which sucks. I mean, come on now. But yeah, we've got one here. I think this might be the only women's fight on the card, actually. It's Loma Lookboonmee, very exciting fighter. And actually, this is a pretty good fight, too. Against Bruna Brazil. I think this is going to be a pretty exciting one at strawweight. Loma Lookboonmee. She has losses to Lupi Godinez, which she lost because of her size. I mean, Lupi's pretty big. And then the wrestling, Lupi did used to be a wrestler and Loma a Muay Thai fighter, so she did used to have a lot of problems with the wrestling side of things. So wasn't too surprised by that. And then Angela Hill, that was actually Loma's debut. Could you imagine debuting against Angela Hill? I mean, that's kind of like, well, it's similar to going against Volkan Oezdemir for your debut. Not a good place to start, especially if you're a one-dimensional Muay Thai fighter at the time. She did debut at 4-1. But yeah, lost to Angela Hill, lost to Lupi Godinez. As I mentioned, used to be one-dimensional, but has wildly improved in that grappling. She really has. I mean, she got a submission win in her last fight. So yeah, definitely much better at grappling now. But obviously, the striking is the cornerstone of her entire style. If you've never seen Muay Thai fights, watch Loma Lookboonmee. That is how Muay Thai fighters fight. And it's that exciting every single time. It's my favorite combat sport to watch, including MMA. Muay Thai is honestly the best. I fucking love Muay Thai. It is so exciting to watch. Incredible. Incredible to watch. And she has that style. So heavy kicks, heavy kicks, really, really fast. And just amazing elbows, just all around striking. Really, truly could not be much better. Amazing striking. And another pinnacle of Muay Thai is they're all of them are like this. It's why I love watching Muay Thai. They're all nasty. The combos, the elbows, like they're just framing up, elbowing, cutting people in the face like that. They all they are about is damage. That is all they're looking for. They do not care about position. Position be damned. They will go for damage every single second of the fight, and it is exciting to watch. She is no different. That is what she does. And that's on the feet and on the ground, by the way. So on the ground, always looking for ground and pound or subs, always looking for a finish, always looking for damage. Amazing stuff. Sadly, though, that has in the past, in almost all of her fights so far in the UFC, has led to some fight IQ issues. And I mean, that's also because she's new to MMA. You know, being a Muay Thai fighter, she hasn't had those rounds yet, that practice yet. Again, came into the UFC at 4-1. You got to imagine, you know, doesn't have the same base as a lot of these other people that are really just specifically have always trained MMA. Did not have that before. So definitely still has those fight IQ issues. Especially with the grappling. I mean, she goes for grappling when she probably shouldn't be. She did get reversed a couple of times. She put herself in some bad spots on the ground. It really has more so to do with the grappling of it all. But yeah, does make some mistakes here and there for sure. But she is a massive favorite because of that striking and because of her history as well. Minus 275 she's sitting at right now. On the other side, Bruna Brazil, her main thing is the power. She did get a win against undefeated Shauna Bannon. I will talk about this a little bit later, but they both fought Denise Gomes. That's a good point of comparison there, but we'll get into that in a little bit. But yeah, her power is really the main thing. She has some decent power. Doesn't necessarily land that much, though, but when she does, it's definitely a problem, that's for sure. Huge problem, though, for her in the past has been the grappling. She was taken down with ease by Denise Gomes multiple times. And this is right after Gomes fought Loma. And by the way, you heard what I just said about Loma being fairly one-dimensional at the start. Loma was actually able to out-grapple Denise Gomes. So she did that and won. Loma beat Gomes pretty convincingly. Then Gomes fought Bruna Brazil here and was actually able to very easily out-grapple Bruna Brazil. So there's definitely a very clear difference even between these two that's already shaping up, just in terms of the grappling alone even. Another issue of hers in the past has been the pace. She does not have much output, and she does move backwards quite a bit. Got overwhelmed by the striking, especially the kicks of Denise Gomes. Now you can kind of see where I might be going with this already, and probably you can see why She is the underdog. Why she's at plus 210 right now. Who's getting the edge here? Well, both of them fought Denise Gomes, so this is where I will talk about it. Loma dominated almost... Oh, I fucked up. I wrote almost in my notes, didn't have to do that. She dominated the first 2 rounds of the fight on the feet and on the ground against Denise Gomes. So just an all-out domination from Loma Lookboonmee. And then, weird loss of focus, and this is where I was getting at with the fight IQ. Lost focus in the third. Weird mistakes going on there. Still managed to recover and win the fight. But, it was definitely a little bit concerning. But did beat Denise Gomes. And what happened with Bruna Brazil? Brazil did get knocked out by Denise Gomes. So already, that's a pretty clear difference. Loma beat Denise Gomes convincingly. Bruna Brazil lost to Denise Gomes convincingly. And there is the size of Bruna Brazil that could be a problem with Loma, but I just don't think that she has that ability, which is why I gotta go with Loma. I don't really know how you could kind of go against her. You gotta give her the edge, especially because of that Denise Gomes matchup, the way that those 2 fights worked out. I think you have to give it to Loma here. Next fight is it 2 debuting fighters? It is. It's Balaji. I think Balaji. Yeah. I think it's Oki's debut as well. But Balaji Oki on the one side and late replacement for Damir Hadjovic. That was the original matchup, was Oki versus Damir Hadjovic. Instead, we've got Balaji Oki and Timothy Kwamba instead. Both of them on... Actually, was Oki on the Contender Series? Now I can't remember. But Kwamba on the Contender Series just a little while ago, a couple months ago. So we'll start with Balaji Oki on this one. There's a very, very, obvious factor that goes... Well, I don't even know how to say this. He's just absolutely lethal when it comes to the striking. I mean, truly, it's scary to watch. It is crazy, the striking ability. It's like... the oohs and ahs that he was getting from the commentators watching this were amazing. And even I was doing the same thing. I was like, oh my God. I was watching it a couple days ago. I didn't watch this yesterday. I was watching for the later card. The main card, actually, I was watching yesterday. But when I was watching it too, I was like, oh my God. Oh shit. His strikes, they're so good. Absolutely devastating striking, very fast, very powerful, extremely technical striking. I mean, just devastating strikes, truly lethal striking. He could easily knock somebody the fuck out like this. I mean, insanity. And that, of course, has a lot to do with the speed. Because, look at this guy, this absolute specimen. Can use his speed very well. He's just insane. I don't even know what else to say. This guy is an absolute beast. Might not be faster than Kwamba. I do have to say that. Kwamba is very fast, but Oki is also very, very quick, especially for a lightweight. He is definitely fast. Lightweight's not usually the fastest guys. He puts that away. He is very, very fast, and it, of course, comes from the explosive power. And as I mentioned, absolute beast. Look at this guy. Seriously, look at this guy. He is huge, and normally that means they slow down. They're not very fast, but like I said, he actually reminds me of Jung Young Lee quite a bit from last week, where he is really just a beast. He's fast, he's powerful, he's all around pretty skilled, and does not slow down. That is a dangerous, dangerous man. Which is why, I didn't put the odds in. I remember the odds, though, and it actually is later in the slide here. The odds for this, he's at minus 200. My bad. I did not put the real odds in yet, because they didn't have odds as of 24 hours ago. They put them on late last night, so I forgot to add them in here. But he's at minus 200. That's what he was at. As for Timothy Kwamba here, he's normally at featherweight. So already you can kind of see that could easily be a problem here. He beat Matteo Vogel, my Canadian buddy, beat Matteo Vogel on the Contender Series. To be honest, I thought Vogel won. I'm not even saying that because I'm partially biased, because I've seen Matteo Vogel fight a couple of times, and he's Canadian, but truly thought Matteo Vogel won that fight. Was getting hit quite a bit by Vogel. The legs were absolutely destroyed. Man, my throat's getting to that point in the stream again where my throat's getting fucked up. Vettori did talk quite highly of him on the Contender Series. He trains with with high-level people. Good with pressure, well-rounded. So he's definitely got the skills, but at lightweight, questionable. This is super late notice, too. This was literally just added in 4 days, 3 days, actually 3-4 days ago, maybe. So very last minute. Did have another fight after that. Last week, by the way. Yes, he fought last week. 8 days in between the fight. He fought on February 2nd. Absolute fucking madman right here. And that was, of course, at 145. This is at 155. The strengths overall, though, as I mentioned, definitely a striker for sure. Super slick striking, very accurate, lots of combos. So definitely does have the striking. That is mainly characterized by that movement. Great movement, really fast. So he is a very good striker. But, I mean, you can't ignore the turnaround on this. Again, literally an 8-day turnaround. That is a recipe for disaster when you are going up against an absolute animal like Balaji Oki at lightweight. He just fought at featherweight. Again, insane. This guy is a lunatic. Won in the second round, by the way. I did watch the fight. It was on Tough Enough, I believe. Yeah, Tough Enough Promotions. Won in the second round. He did get hit a couple of times. Nothing crazy. So it's not like he's coming into this injured or else he wouldn't have taken it. But again, 8 days ago at 145, did get hit a little bit. Now going against a lightweight, a huge lightweight, could be a problem. That's for sure. And I don't know what the odds are for this one. I only remembered that Oki was at -200. And I did change the parlays later because Oki is in the parlays later. Spoiler alert. But yeah, don't have the odds for him. Doesn't matter anyway. And to be honest, I don't even have any kind of suspended disbelief here. This is probably going to be a massacre. Like, honestly, it's really not. This is really should not be close at all. This should be an absolute slaughter. The only reason I don't have Oki really as a sniper pick is really because of what happened last week and what has happened to me in the past, which is don't pick people making their debut. So I'm not doing that. He is not the sniper pick, but he is going to be in the parlays because I really just cannot imagine Kwamba somehow getting a win out of this. Like, horrifying circumstances for him. And I am shocked that he took this fight. Truly. Terrible idea. I really do predict a brutal knockout here. And even just the circumstances aside for Kwamba here, I mean, Oki has been training for a pretty tough lightweight. Damir Hadjovic has been around for a while. That's who he was training for. And now he's getting a featherweight that just fought. I mean, I actually thought that Kwamba got pieced up by Vogel quite a bit. And Vogel is actually he's definitely slower and not as good at striking as Oki. So, I mean, honestly, if Kwamba gets hit even a couple of times, this fight is over. So, I mean, even just based on size, Oki's much bigger. Kwamba doesn't offensively grapple. I think this is a recipe for disaster, like I said. This is going to be a slaughter. I can't wait to see it because I'm excited to see Oki get a huge knockout. I just love knockouts in general. But yeah, I don't think this is going to be even remotely close at all. Moving on. It's the next fight. It is Trevin Giles and I believe it's Carlos Prates. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Prates or Prates, because I think Rodriguez later is Brazilian and the S is more of a Z. So I believe it's Prates. I believe that's how you pronounce it. I do know a little bit of Portuguese, but not enough to know. But I'm pretty sure that's how you say that, is Prates. And Trevin Giles. Trevin Giles, he is 7-5 in the UFC. All losses by finish, 2 knockout losses, 3 sub losses. Shockingly, a win over Roman Dolidze, but even more shockingly, and I didn't even know this actually until I heard it on the commentary of one of his fights, a win over Ryan Spann. Can you believe that? A win over Ryan Spann, light heavyweight Ryan Spann. That is crazy. Like, truly, that's actually wild, especially when you consider he's 7-5 in the UFC, but he has a win over Ryan Spann. That's wild. That's weird stuff here, which is why MMA math doesn't always work out, you know? As they say, MMA math, you know, not always accurate. What is he good at here? He's got a pretty obvious strength. That's his wrestling, that's for sure. He took down Michael Morales, and Michael Morales is definitely one of those guys that we've been watching out for quite a while. Very, very good. And Trevin Giles did take him down and control him for quite a bit. He did end up losing the fight, but he did have those moments with the wrestling. Very, very good at the wrestling. Sadly, though, not so good with the striking. Can walk into things sometimes. He does walk into things quite a bit. Usually decent striking and a decent chin, but that has been a problem in the past where he just, when walking forward, looking for those takedowns, gets hit quite a bit. But like I said, I mean, well, he has been knocked out twice and subbed 3 times, so I guess, you know, chin isn't crazy, I guess, if he's been knocked out twice, but still. Still impressive nonetheless. I don't even know why I said that. I don't think it's really that impressive. Anyway, moving on. He does have the cardio, though, and he really showed that in the Preston Parsons fight. Preston Parsons has crazy cardio. We've seen that a couple of times now. And Giles kept up with that and actually even turned it around on Preston Parsons multiple times to even get the win with his cardio. So he really does have the cardio to work with. So that's, you know, that really does make this a lot closer. He is at plus 210. So the odds maker's not liking his chances here. But the wrestling and cardio, definitely something to watch out for. On the other side, Carlos Prates making his debut. Yeah, making his debut from the Contender Series. Knocked out an undefeated fighter spectacularly. I mean, he's really good on the Contender Series. 6-fight KO streak. Let me say that again. A 6-fight knockout streak headed into this week. That is insanely impressive, especially that last one on the Contender Series. Which, of course, means, I mean, the first edge has got to be his striking. I mean, clearly. Heavy strikes, very, very accurate. Unusual angles, too. Not necessarily like an Anderson Silva, but Anderson Silva-esque, where he's a lot of movement, unusual angles that you don't see from everybody there. Definitely not your average striker, that is for sure. But the wrestling, though, that was a concern. That was definitely a concern. Was taken down and controlled on the Contender Series for a bit, and was also pushed into the fence for a while, which you can imagine when you're going against somebody who is good at the wrestling could be an issue. Which brings me into the next one, which is he's making his debut. We don't really know how good he actually is, especially if he was controlled like that on the Contender Series. Sure, he got a good knockout, and he's good at striking, but how is the grappling and how is the wrestling going to hold up, really? And how is he going to handle going against somebody with the experience of Trevin Giles? The odds suggest he's going to walk right through him at minus 275. I'm not sure about that. I am not sure about that at all. Who is getting the edge? I didn't write notes for this one. I don't know why, but that's okay. Like I said, Giles could easily win with a decision here. Just control him with the wrestling. I could easily see that happening. Could also obviously see Prates getting a knockout here. Could go either way on this one, which is why I gotta go even on this one. So really, I guess you should be going with Giles. Again, I've said this before. If I say it's even, usually the smart bet, well, the smart bet is then to go with the underdog because it's really 50-50. That's what even means. So the smart play, go with the underdog, Trevin Giles. In the long run, that will get you money. Just saying. But yeah, next up though, Rodolfo Vieira, Armen Petrosyan at middleweight. Exciting fight here. Rodolfo Vieira, incredible submissions. So that's obviously his first thing there. I believe he's a multiple-time jiu-jitsu world champion. Insanely good at the submissions. That is by far his strength. I'm not saying it's his only strength, but it might be. Had a hard time getting Brundage down, so that's why I put subs there. I did not put grappling because really, the wrestling actually is not that great. It's not that great, but the submission skills, fantastic. And like I said, had a hard time taking Brundage down, and we know Brundage, a bit iffy. Couldn't take down Chris Curtis either. Went a shocking 0 for 14 against Chris Curtis. Insane stat. 0 for 14 on takedowns. So again, I mean, Chris Curtis does have good takedown defense. Remember that, take that for what it's worth, but still, 0 for 14, still. But also you got to remember too, Vieira is pretty big, and Curtis is actually a smaller middleweight. So again, the fact that he couldn't get a takedown or really even come close to a real takedown against Chris Curtis, who is also mostly a striker and smaller, that is a message in itself. Yeah. And also, by the way, Chris Curtis doesn't move a whole lot, and Armen moves a lot more. So again, that's something to remember. The striking, definitely not good. Not good at striking at all. Got lit up. He got lit up by Cody Brundage. In fact, really it looked like Cody Brundage was going to win that fight. He completely blew that fight. He really probably should have won that. Almost got KO'd by Brundage. So right away, that is a concern. Especially in this fight. He choked on my spit there. Huge concern when you're going against a striker. Then, like I said, actually did end up submitting Brundage because Brundage jumped for a guillotine for literally no reason whatsoever. Just threw away the win because he was going to win that fight. So again, that is something to remember for sure. Another huge part of this, especially in this matchup, he is very slow. He is very slow, especially in this matchup. Because he's so big and not really a striker, his reaction times with the strikes especially, not very good, pretty slow. Of course, hard for him to catch somebody who's moving too. So I think that's going to be even worse for him in this matchup. My nose is really itchy. Yeah, this is going to be a tough matchup for him for sure. And he also slows down quite a bit over the fight normally. I'm not saying he has bad cardio, because that kind of has been thrown out in the past quite a bit, but he has had an issue sustaining his offense for the entire 3 rounds. So is that a cardio issue? I'm not really sure. I think it's more of just a product of him being so big. Yeah, which brings the odds to minus 110. So they're basically dead even right now. As for Armen Petrosyan, the striking is obviously where it's at. That is for sure his game plan in every fight. Keep it on the feet, keep it with the striking. He's very, very good at doing that. Technical, very technical striking. Everything straight, in the right spot, really hard. I mean, there's nothing, no weird thing. He's not using weird angles. Not an unusual striker, just straight up, straightforward, really technical striking. Dominated Christian Leroy Duncan like that. Very good kicks as well. That also helps. This also helps, I should say, the speed. Very, very fast, which helps him with the striking, of course. Really just in the weight class in general. I mean, middleweight, you don't normally see the strikers being that fast, but he is. He is definitely a faster one. And that's offensive and defensive speed there. Again, use this against Christian Leroy Duncan to overcome an 8-inch reach disadvantage. So if he was able to outstrike somebody with an 8-inch reach advantage, that's pretty impressive to do, especially with Christian Leroy Duncan being so unusual and long and powerful. So very impressive that he was able to do that. Yeah, definitely will help him in this matchup. Sadly, does not really have the wrestling as much, though. Did get taken down by Caio Borralho pretty easily multiple times. That is Caio Borralho, though. So, Rodolfo Vieira, not like Caio Borralho, but still something to look out for. Was taken down by AJ Dobson as well. That is slightly more concerning, because Dobson, maybe not the best. But he also never got submitted by Caio and got back up a couple of times. So if he never got submitted by Caio Borralho and was able to get back up, I think he should be okay in this matchup. But again, definitely something to look for. And like I said, minus 110, completely dead even on the odds. So who is getting the matchup? Who's getting the edge here? Is it Vieira? Is it Petrosyan? Well, it's striker versus grappler. That's pretty clear. It is pretty close. Petrosyan hasn't done well with wrestling in the past, but has the great striking. So that could, got the edge there. But Vieira does not have good striking and can wrestle a decent amount. But he does have good subs. So who's getting the edge here? It's pretty close. But I'm going with Petrosyan on this one. Honestly, I was actually pretty close to not giving out an edge in this one. I was close to calling it a tie, but Vieira is just too one-dimensional in my mind, and he's slow. So I would imagine that Petrosyan, he's been working the takedown defense. He's been getting better, by the way, in the past anyway. So he should be able to keep himself on his feet, or at least get back up, and then dominate with the striking. So I think he should be able to win like that. And again, wasn't submitted by Caio Borralho, so shouldn't get subbed by Vieira either. Next up, it is Michael Johnson. Love this picture. And Darius Flowers at lightweight. We're opening up, of course, with Michael Johnson. He was on Tough Season 12. So yes, he's been around for quite a while. He was 8-4 before the UFC, and now he is 21-19. This is his 29th UFC fight. Absolutely insane. Obviously, he's going to get to 30 because this won't be his last UFC fight. I can guarantee you that. But yeah, crazy numbers there, that's for sure. And he's lasted that long because of his striking. That is for damn sure. Really fast strikes and combos, and that even carries into the last fight he has. He is still very fast, even though he is, I believe, 37 or something like that now. He is still very fast. And lots of power. He usually ends up stumbling his opponents at least once in each fight that he's in. So always live for a KO, that's for sure. And like I said, speed. And not just speed, but also cardio. He's almost always the faster guy at 155, and he doesn't really slow down much throughout the fight. So that is always something to look out for. Pace, cardio, speed, great. But as I kind of mentioned, the age. The age is an issue, especially in this matchup. I mean, you know, if he's going against somebody else his age, I wouldn't mention it. But I always have to mention it when it's a huge age gap. He is 8 years older than Flowers. Flowers 29, Michael Johnson 37. You know, that's where it starts to get a bit iffy when you get into that kind of range. So that is definitely something to look for. And I mean, you know, you lose speed over time, and speed has always been his advantage. So if he's starting to lose speed, he's starting to lose the accuracy, possibly the power too, you know, that could definitely be a problem. I should also mention, though, recovery. Recovery is a problem with age as well. And he was just brutally, absolutely brutally KO'd by Fajeda. That was that one where it literally looked like his soul left his body, where he was stiff as a board and his legs were crossed and he wasn't conscious for about 30 seconds. That was just his last fight. That could be a problem when you're 37 years old. I'm just saying. So that really could come into play here. We don't know how he's going to come back after something like that. That was absolutely brutal. One of the best KOs of the year, and he was on the wrong side of it. But he is the favorite right now, so that's interesting. Minus 125. On the other side is Darius Flowers, of course. Used to fight at 185 middleweight, now down at 155. So he started at middleweight, then took a fight at 170 for the Contender Series. Now he is moving down even further to 155. Lost to Jake Matthews in between there. That was at 170 in his debut. Jake Matthews is pretty good, and he's also, like I said, at 170. So, you know, that's okay. That's an okay loss to have, especially in your debut. He's actually pretty well-rounded, I gotta say. Haven't seen, you know, there's not a whole lot of tape on him because he's only had the one UFC fight, but from what I've seen, he is pretty well-rounded. He has great striking, pretty fast, good combos, good defense as well, honestly. Good takedown defense as well, good wrestling. Actually did get good wrestling against Matthews as well. Again, 170. Did get submitted. Yikes, but still. And I don't know if you remember this, but his contract on the Contender Series was won by getting the Slam KO. It was the weird one with Gogo Ladze where he was slammed and then they fought for about 10 seconds and then Gogo Ladze was just like to the ref like, nah, like we're done here. And then it was kind of like I guess he had popped his shoulder out or something like that. It was probably the weirdest finish in Contender Series history for sure. Weird one, very, very strange one, but that was done with the wrestling of Darius Flowers. And again, that was at 170. Gogo Ladze is a pretty big guy. So that is still something to remember because he is at 155 now. Don't forget that part. So well-rounded. Lots of pressure as well. Always walking forward. The one downside, though, oh, my remote didn't work for that one, is the inexperience. We haven't seen him a whole lot. He hasn't really had a whole bunch of competition, and he isn't quite as polished. That was slightly noticeable. So he could walk into some things, especially against Michael Johnson, or make some bad mistakes that most people wouldn't normally be making, just because he doesn't really have that MMA experience yet. And in terms of his career, almost always involved in finishes. Win or loss, there's usually a finish involved. That does say a lot too, especially when he's going against Michael Johnson. The odds, plus 100 right now. So again, pretty close, but they're favoring Michael Johnson. So who's going to get the edge here? Is it Michael Johnson? Is it Darius Flowers? Well, they got pretty similar styles. Probably no takedowns in this fight. So whoever is going to be the better striker, that's probably who's going to win. Johnson, more experience, has some power, but is also much older and just got brutally KO'd. Could go either way on that one. Flowers doesn't really have much experience, but seems to have some good skills. Also, again, he's cutting down to 155 for the very first time. We don't know how that can affect him. I mean, it affects people differently. Does that affect his chin? Does it not affect him at all? Does the power carry down? Does the weight, does what carries down? We have no idea, which is why, sadly, there's no edge for this one. I had to keep it even. There's just way too many questions with how good or how inexperienced Flowers is. They're too close on paper. Can't tell. So could not give out an edge for this one, especially with Johnson having so-so results lately. Especially with that KO loss. You never know how they're going to come back. So either guy could get a decision or a KO with the striking. Just not sure. So we move on to the next one, and that is Brad Tavares, Gregory Rodriguez, RoboCop himself. Arms raised, the champ. The champ is back. Brad Tavares first, though. He was actually winning against DDP, so that kind of says something. I mean, this was DDP like 4 fights ago, so does it mean anything? Does it not? I don't know, but still important to point out, I guess. Was also ranked in that fight, by the way. Brad Tavares was ranked in that fight against Brad Tavares. So he has been at that elite level before, that's for sure. Then he got KO'd by Bruno Silva. Not great. And then he just beat Chris Weidman in Weidman's return. What a piece of shit. Can you not just give him the win? You know what I mean? Come on. Just give him the win. But he didn't. He beat him. Horrible man. The striking is what you got to look out for, that's for sure. Very technical striking, great leg kicks, which again, that is how he was beating DDP. Did get pieced up by Weidman a little bit, and he has been KO'd 3 times, so I do put that up as a strength, but he has been knocked out 3 times, so keep that in mind, that's for sure. He was also dropped by DDP pretty bad twice. So almost was a 4th KO loss there. The takedown defense, though, has been a huge part of his career. I mean, it's like, are you just looking for something to put up here because he's that bad? No, this is actually a huge point in his career. They mention it on the broadcast constantly when Brad Tavares is fighting. They'll obviously be mentioning it again. It's something like 85% or something like that of takedowns he's shut down in like his 20-fight UFC career. That's a pretty crazy stat. So for real, he is very good at shutting down takedowns. He really is. And Weidman couldn't even really get any takedowns. He's more of a wrestler. DDP kept getting reversed by Tavares. So truly, he really does have some good defensive wrestling. Maybe not offensive, but defensive, damn sure. The pace, though, has been a problem in the past. Really patient and precise, but that can mean that he gets pushed backwards quite a bit. He also always starts to slow down after about halfway in the fight, so that's really not great either, which is probably why his odds are at plus 200 right now. I'm imagining that probably has a lot to do with it. And of course, it also has a lot to do with RoboCop himself, Gregory Rodriguez. Is it Rodriguez? I think it's Rodriguez because it's Portuguese. He's 5 years younger than Tavares. That's important to note. He's 7-2, by the way, since losing on the Contender Series. He lost on the Contender Series, 7-2 since. Very, very impressive. Split decision loss to Petrosian, so that was one of those losses. I mean, that's really not that bad. Split decision loss to a very, very good striker who is probably better than Tavares himself. And then knocked out by Bruno Ferreira. Kind of just walked into the punch, honestly. And he was winning before that. Just walked into a brutal hook there. That can happen to anybody. Just a silly, silly mistake. So those are his only 2 losses since that Contender Series loss. So really, he could be 9-0 right now if a judge goes the other way and if he doesn't make a stupid mistake walking into a punch like that. Yeah. So really could be 9-0 since then. Obviously, the striking is a huge part of that. 4 KOs in the UFC, 2 first-round knockouts. Pretty slick, really, and pretty quick for a middleweight, especially a guy that size. Very, very good striking right there. And the power, obviously, unmatched. So I had to write that down. The power, I mean, good Lord. Again, 4 KOs in the UFC. Some of the KOs, by the way, came from ground and pound. And the one against Dennis Tululin in the last fight, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. One of the most brutal ground and pound KOs I've ever seen. And I don't even say ground and pound TKO. Ground and pound KO. Knocked him out cold with the elbow. Brutal. Absolutely slept him. Absolutely nasty stuff right there. Throws everything with power there. Power personified. Again, RoboCop. Oh, I forgot to change the colors there, so that's 2 mistakes today. My goodness, I'm falling apart at the seams. 2 mistakes. That is supposed to be in green. He is very tough. Called RoboCop for a reason. He is an absolute machine, truly. I mean, he has been hit really hard quite a bit, especially that Chidi fight. That Chidi and Jokuani fight. One of the best rounds I've seen in the last couple years. That's where he got that absolutely insane cut in his forehead there, where you could literally see like the skull and the huge vein and just blood all over the place. Worst cut I've ever seen. Yeah. And he fought through that and through getting knocked down and hit quite a bit and still managed to win the fight and get a KO. Like I said, the Fajeda one, really just a huge mistake. He probably would not have been knocked out by that had he not been just walking forward recklessly. And he doesn't normally do stuff like that. And Fajeda's a beast. We've seen him win by brutal knockouts other than that as well. So that's just, again, huge mistake there. Just, yeah, brutal mistake. Won't happen again, I'm sure. Especially not with Tavares, because Tavares does not have that kind of power, which is why he's sitting at minus 250. You can probably already see where I'm going with this, but, you know, who's getting the edge here? Well, it's pretty close on paper. Tavares could stop the takedowns and outpace him on the feet for a decision. But I could easily, see RoboCop getting a KO or using his size to get a decision. I could very, very much see that happening, which is why I gotta go with RoboCop. With Tavares getting knocked out, I should say, 3 times before, and he always gets hit quite a bit. I just don't think he can weather that kind of a storm, because RoboCop don't stop. I hope that should be a t-shirt. I really hope that RoboCop himself hears this at some point. RoboCop don't stop. That's your new motto. That's your new tagline. Get the merch ready. I'll take my 10%. Also, the size is a pretty big issue as well. I mean, look at this guy. He is absolutely massive. DDP did the exact same thing with Tavares. Used his size, used his power. And Rodriguez might have more size and more power. So, yeah, definitely going to be a problem going with Rodriguez on this for sure. Or maybe I should call him HoboCop. Oh, that just sounds bad because it sounds like hobo. Damn. I was trying to go Portuguese with HoboCop. But yeah, that just sounds silly. I take that back. Not HoboCop. RoboCop. Moving on. I don't know why this next one is on the main card. Baffled, honestly. Potiera, one of the worst fighters in the UFC, and Britchek making his debut. So I really have no idea why this is third fight from the top. But here we are. That's where he's landed up. So we're going to go with it, obviously. And that's, of course, at middleweight again. Lots of middleweights on this card. And by the way, this was actually supposed to be Albert Duraev and Britchek on here. Potiera, last-minute replacement. And I actually didn't even realize this. I didn't put 2 and 2 together until pretty late last night, actually. Potiera, normally a light heavyweight. This is his middleweight debut right now. So this could actually be more interesting than we originally thought. And than I originally thought when I was doing the tape. Because it didn't even for some reason dawn on me the fact that this is a middleweight and Potiera is normally at light heavyweight. So we'll start with Potiera, of course. Knocked out in 3 of his 4 UFC fights. Really not very good at all. If this was at light heavyweight and that was Britchek, that's how Britchek looked at light heavyweight, this would be an automatic slam dunk for sure. But middleweight does get a little more interesting. 2 KO losses in a row, by the way, headed into here. Last one, by the way, in December. So really like a month and a half ago. So that's not normally a good sign, especially when you're taking this on late notice, especially when you're cutting down to middleweight for the first time. How does that affect your chin? We don't know. We don't know. So, but not great circumstances, that's for sure. Yeah. His one huge benefit, though, is his fast hands. He really has, I mean, he hasn't necessarily used it that well yet in his UFC career, but he does have very fast hands. So, yeah, could be dangerous, might not be, who knows. Just fast hands, though. Lands quite a bit when you let him. And that's really the key, is you have to just be standing still and then he will land quite a bit. If you're not, he's probably not going to hit you that much. Really fast, but not usually much power. Again, that could change, though, because we're at middleweight. We don't know. He did drop Bellato, though, and that actually is an important note. He did drop Bellato in the last fight. Almost got a finish. Almost knocked out Rodolfo Bellato. So that is concerning, actually, when you look at this matchup, which, like I said, is now at middleweight. We don't know. Does that power transfer down? We just don't know. The defense, though. Good Lord, is he bad at striking defense. I mean, he keeps his hands very low. He gets hit a lot. He gets knocked out a lot, as we discussed. 3 out of his 4 fights, he got knocked out. So, yeah, not great. And that really plays into the circumstances of this. The turnaround. Just got KO'd 2 months ago. Wasn't scheduled for a fight this week, so took this on short notice. Britchek has been scheduled for a while, so he knew he was fighting. And he was fighting Albert Duraev, who is also very, very good. So, you know, he was prepared for a much better, more technical striker. Instead, he's getting this guy. So, you know, we'll see. We'll see, I guess. The odds plus 162. I mean, you can tell why already. He's been knocked out a few times, and Britchek, as we are about to discuss, is a pretty good striker himself. Insane stat headed into this, which again is probably why he's a huge favorite. 5 first round KO streak. Let me say that again. 5 first round knockouts in a row headed into Saturday. That's a crazy streak to head into. And was, again, he was already scheduled to fight in September. So he was planning on fighting in September, had to pull out. Now he's fighting in January. His opponent pulled out this time again. They wanted to still give him the fight, so they gave him Potiera. That's what happened here. And as you would imagine, pretty good at striking when you've got 5 first round KOs in a row. So the KO streak, yeah. Great striking defense as well, though. Very good head movement, backwards movement, you know, lots of movement, very good striking defense. Super aggressive, super accurate, and very, very dangerous. Now, again, will that also happen with Potiera, considering Potiera is coming down from light heavyweight? Maybe he actually does have a chin down here. You know, maybe that the middleweight power won't affect him as much. We don't really know, but the striking, pretty good for Britchek here. And that also is multiplied really by that speed. When you're fast and you have power, that's somebody that's very, very dangerous. Really fast hands, but as I mentioned, it's not just fast hands like Potieria has. It's fast hands and fast everything else. He is just fast at moving in general, which will probably help him quite a bit in this fight. Because Potieria, not really the fastest guy. The only problem, though, is he is the definition of a mystery. We don't really know a whole lot about him. We don't know much about him. We don't know how good he is. He's been fighting in Octagon, which is in Germany, I believe, most of the time. And Fen, I've watched that as well. That's in Russia. Fight exclusive night is what they call it. Fen, I don't know. Anyway, that's just what it's called. I don't know what to say. Haven't seen any grappling whatsoever. Like I said, when you have that many knockouts in a row, they're not grappling. Like, he's not grappling anybody. I've even looked at some of the tape. There was no grappling whatsoever. So truly, complete mystery with that. And we don't know how good his opponents really are. Because again, Octagon, Fen, are they good? Are they not? We really don't know. We really have no idea about anything really with Britchek. I mean, he is a complete mystery when it comes to that. But he's at minus 200, probably because of the opponent and then because of course, the knockout streak. That would help a lot. But who's getting the edge here? Very good question, very good question. It's pretty close because of how unknown is and the history of Potieria. And of course, now we know the weight class as well. That's also interesting. Either guy could get a KO. Not really sure if anything else is possible in this matchup. I don't really know if we'd be seeing a decision. I'd be pretty surprised. I think we're just going to see a knockout. Somebody's going to get a knockout. Who is it going to be? I'm going to go with Britchek. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, especially when Potieria has been so bad. I mean, really, like he KO'd in 3 of his 4 fights. Again, last one was just 2 months ago. Quick turnaround. We don't know how he's going to be at middleweight. There's so many questions to do with Potieria, but this guy seems pretty legit. He does seem pretty legit. And when I watched the tape, the striking was very impressive, especially the defense as well. So is Potieria capable of knocking him out? Probably. But the defense is still pretty impressive from him, and he should be able to overcome that striking. And still not going to put huge emphasis on it, though. So he's not going to be in, the huge parlays or anything like that, because we don't really know how good he is, or how Ihor is going to be in this new division. So I'm not going to be putting him in the parlays, but I will give him the edge because he really should win this. He should. Will he? I don't know, but he should. Finally, not finally, but the co-main event, Dan Ige, Dan the Man, 50K against Andre Fili here. This should be fight of the night. Very exciting fight here. I mean, both of these guys always in some exciting wars. Super excited to watch this. It's at featherweight, of course. And we start with Dan 50K Ige. Never been finished before, so that's important to remember, especially in this fight. Lost to Iavloyev, lost to Mitchell, the Korean Zombie, and technically Josh Emmett. I think he won that one, and I will say that forever. I still think Dan Ige won that fight, but I digress. And those are his only real losses, so, those aren't really that bad, really. I mean, those are pretty okay losses to have. Again, they're all people that have been in the top 5, so pretty good. Pretty good. Top 10. I don't think Mitchell was top 5. Was on a 5, very well-rounded, though. Was on a 6-fight win streak, including Barboza. Beat Landwehr in Vancouver. I think he beat, and I think Landwehr beat Fili. Oh, I skipped I shouldn't have pressed that yet. I wasn't done doing the doing the profile part of it. That's okay. He was on a 6-fight win streak. Then he lost those other losses. Then he beat Landwehr in Vancouver, and I think Landwehr would beat Feely. I really do. So that already could kind of tell you where this is going, probably. But yes, very well-rounded. Amazing, clean, technical, powerful striking, and does have wrestling. He just doesn't really use it much. Definitely the defensive wrestling is amazing. He probably does have the offensive wrestling. Like I said, he just doesn't really use it because he doesn't need to most of the time. The movement, though, very important, especially in this fight. Lots of movement, always faster than everybody, and except for Evloev, and very, very slick with the combos, slick with everything. Very, very good movement. That will help him a lot here. And what will definitely help him is, as I said, never been finished. And he's been hit with some pretty heavy shots, hit by Josh Emmett. Nobody hits harder at featherweight than Josh Emmett, and he ate that shit and still never been finished. Uses that well to win the decisions, and like I said, I think that's how he won against Josh Emmett. Fuck what the records say. I still think he won that. Moving on. Oh, with the odds. Minus 175 as it stands right now. I'm actually a little surprised that it wasn't higher, to be honest, but hey, that benefits us. So, all good. As for Andre Feely here, Touchy Feely, one of the best nicknames in the game there, Touchy Feely. Amazing. Let's go with him. 3-4 in the last 7 fights. 2 of the W's, by the way, split decisions. So that's a bit rough. Because he realistically could be 1-6 right now. That's not good. The splits, by the way, Bill Algeo, Charles Jourdain, did lose to Bryce Mitchell, Nathaniel Wood, and was it Joe Anderson Brito? Yeah, Brito. I just wrote down Brito, but I think there's only one. So I'm guessing it's him. The offense is where he capitalizes the most. Pretty good striking offense. Not super clean, but pretty accurate and pretty powerful. So it's really the defense that's the problem, which is, of course, the next point. The defense is where he struggles the most, by far. Not really the fastest guy, and not a lot of movement. So not a great combination. And that leads to him getting hit quite a bit. And he has his hands down pretty low for most of the time, which probably not a great idea when you're going against a pretty technical striker like Dan Ige. So I think that's going to be a bit of a problem. He is also very tough, though. We've also seen him get hit pretty hard and not get finished. He has been finished by Brito there. But that was, let's be real, a pretty generous stoppage by the ref there. I would say it was pretty early. If you watch that back, it was like 40 seconds in, and Feely was kind of just looking up at him, waiting to defend, ground and pound. And the ref was just like, okay, fight's over. And it's like, okay, well, that wasn't a real finish, but we move on. So yeah, very tough, which also helps him in the decision. So probably no finishes in this fight. But I think we have a pretty clear winner. The odds here, plus 137 for Feely. Who's getting the edge? You can probably tell where I'm going with this already. It is close on paper. Either could realistically get a decision, but Feely uses length and power like Emmett did to win over the judges. So he could do that. He could use the power and the length to win over the judges with damage and big moments. But realistically, I honestly think there's only one guy at featherweight that can do that, and his name is Josh Emmett. Feely is not Josh Emmett, so I don't think that's going to happen. Ige, lots of skills, lots of output to win a decision. He could maybe get a TKO if we see a generous ref like the last one with that Brito fight. But yeah, more than likely a decision. And I gotta go with Dan Ige. I just truly don't really see how he's gonna lose this. I don't know. I just don't see how he's gonna lose this fight. I just think he's just a much better all-around fighter. He's better. He's more active. He's more technical as a striker. And he's always fresh for 3 or 5 rounds. I think he's just that good. Is he top 5? No, he seems to struggle when he gets to that point. But if you're not in the top 5, I honestly think he's going to beat you pretty much every single time. So I got to go with Ige on this one. Dan the man, Dan Ige, for the win. Hawaii stand up. Now, that brings us to the main event of the evening. I could do a Bruce Buffer impression, but I won't because I'm not in a location that can support that kind of volume. But I would like to do that eventually. But anyway, here we are. It's the main event. It's Jack Hermansson. It's Joey Pfeiffer. Body Bags. B. Joe Pfeiffer. Body Bags, by the way, very cool nickname. It's the middleweight main event. Let's get right into it. First up, Jack Hermansson has not fought in over a year. That is very concerning, especially when you consider his age. That is not good. Got KO'd by Dolidze. Did have a win. That was his last fight. Did have a win over Chris Curtis before that. That was that super weird one where then Chris Curtis kind of lost his shit because Hermansson was fighting like a bitch, which he was. I mean, let's be real. That was not a fun fight to watch, and it was all because of Hermansson. But he won the fight, so I can't really say too much there. But yeah, we move on into the first point, which is the subs. Obviously, that is his best asset, the submissions. He's gotten some pretty crazy submissions in the past. I don't know if that'll help him this time, but I gotta say it in there. Put it in there anyway, because it is a 5-round fight. You never know. You make one mistake, he's all over it, and you're asleep on the canvas. The movement is what won him that Chris Curtis fight, 100%. He is very elusive, very awkward, moves a lot, very hard to hit. But he does keep his hands pretty low, which is concerning when you're going against somebody like this, because you could get knocked out. But yeah, moves very well and is very hard to hit, as Chris Curtis showed us. The one huge downside for him right now, though, is his age. For sure, that's an issue. 8 years older than Pfeiffer, and as I mentioned, hasn't fought in a year. That's also a problem. He is definitely slower than Pfeiffer, and probably does not have the chin anymore. So that really could be a problem. The chin gets worse over age. The speed gets worse as you age. And yeah, just reaction times in general. So really could play a massive, massive factor in this fight. Also has a lower output as well. And that also goes down over age a little bit, but more so the chin and the speed. That's a problem. The odds right now, plus 210. Good Lord. Not supporting Jack Hermansson at all are the odds makers. They're going all in on Body Bags, Joe Pfeiffer. Heavy punches and kicks. But really, he is extremely well-rounded. And he has shown that in the UFC so far. He has looked very, very good. Heavy punches and kicks. That's been obvious in every single fight. Could get a KO against anybody like that. Super accurate. I mean, my God, the speed behind it, too. Oh, like he can crack. I mean, you can hear those punches land for sure every single time. It is going to be loud in that octagon, in the apex with those punches landing and kicks. That is for sure. And then insanely heavy wrestling as well. Just power and everything, really. But yeah, insanely heavy wrestling and great submissions. That's what I mean. He is the definition of a well-rounded fighter. I am very impressed by Joe Pfeiffer. That is for sure. And by the way, was not impressed by Joe Pfeiffer the first time I saw him on the Contender Series. Not the Stoltzfus garbage, that nonsense. But the last time he was on Contender Series, I wasn't really that impressed. But as soon as I saw him in that first fight, I was like, okay, fuck everything I said. This guy's actually really, really good. And he's just been getting better and better ever since. extremely well-rounded, but not much experience yet. And that is a problem. That could be a problem, at least, in this fight, because this is by far, and it's not even close, not even a question, this is by far his toughest fight yet. Only 3 UFC fights total, and he is in a main event against a ranked Jack Hermansson. That is a tough task. It really, really is. Only 3 UFC fights, and let me tell you who they are. Alan Amadovsky, who is completely useless, so that almost doesn't even count. Then he had GM3, Gerald Mearshart. Let's be real, I mean, he's been pretty hit and miss. He has been pretty good, but he's also kind of been blown out of the water a couple of times, including against Joe Pyfer. So is that a great win or not? Not really sure. And then I would say he actually went down a step, probably, against Abdul Razak Al Hassan, because he hasn't really shown much promise either. So we haven't really seen him go against anybody even close to this caliber yet. So this is going to be the true test of whether Joe Pyfer is going to be a top 5 talent or not. That's really what this fight is. But my God, is he a beast. I mean, he really is. Everything has huge power with him. Striking, grappling. He is way bigger than everybody, especially Jack Hermansson. He is just absolutely massive. The only person who might be bigger is Gregory Rodriguez, who is earlier on this card, also at middleweight. But yeah, in general, he is pretty much always the bigger guy. And really, he hasn't showed any cardio issues at all. So I don't imagine that that's going to be a problem. I mean, I also think there's going to be a finish anyway, so probably won't even come into play as it is. But from what I've seen, this guy's mindset and his training should surpass anything like that. I truly don't think cardio is going to be an issue. We haven't seen any slowing down whatsoever from him. So I think that's going to be completely fine, which is probably why those odds are at minus 275 right now. So who's getting the edge? Well, you could probably tell where I'm going with this, but I'll humor everybody. It's pretty close on paper because of the experience, of course. I mean, Hermansson is used to those 5-rounders and can be really tricky to hit. So, maybe Pyfer doesn't really get any clean strikes in, and Hermansson kind of controls him over the 5 rounds, or at least 3 out of the 5 rounds. Maybe he wins 3, 4, 5 and wins. I could see that happening. Pyfer hasn't had anybody super tough yet. But again, he is an absolute tank. I mean, watch the tape on this guy. It's very impressive to watch. And I'm not going to lie, I got to go with the tank. He's 8 years younger, and that really is one of the huge selling points for me in this matchup specifically. He is 8 years younger. He's super strong, super dangerous everywhere, especially on the feet. I think he should be able to get a win here, should be able to get a knockout or any kind of finish. Yeah, he should just be able to win, I think. So I'm giving him the edge. And that is it. That is it for the edge. We'll give a quick recap, though, just to really, sell it home. We've got Daniel Marcos in the first fight of the night, gave him the edge. We got Devin Clark in there with the grappling. He should be able to win there. Loma Lukbunmi is next. She seems to have a pretty clear edge as the only women's fight of the night. Balaji Oki, I mean, with Timothy Kwamba coming in on short notice, really should win that fight. So we gave him the edge. Then we got Petrosian, really should win as well. That one's slightly closer. I'm a little more nervous about that one, but he really should win that fight. Rodriguez over Tavares, yeah. I mean, really should win that fight as well. Bruchek, slightly closer. I'm a little more nervous. That's probably the one I'm most nervous about. is Bricek. But again, should be able to beat somebody like Potiera, but cannot be certain until I see it happen. Then, of course, Dan the man, Dan 50K Ige in there. Gotta pick him. And then we are rounding it out, of course, with Body Bags Joe Pyfer for the win. And that is it for the Edge. But before we call it a night, of course, we're going in to the best bets of the night. It's UFC Vegas 86, the best bets. And of course, we always open with the triple play. And of course, this is where we pick three of the top people of the night, people that I've already given the edge. We pick three of them and sling them together in the parlays. And that will open up with none other than Body Bags Joe Pyfer himself at minus 275. That's the first leg. The second leg is Balaji Oki. And like I said, see, minus 200. I did have the odds in there, just not earlier in the show. That's the second leg over Timothy Kwamba, who is a very late notice 145er coming in against Balaji Oki, the 155er, who is a beast of a man. So we're tying those two together and then rounding it off with RoboCop Gregory Rodriguez at minus 250. I mean, again, over Tavares, he really should be able to win that. Probably even get a finish as well. In fact, I wonder what the odds would be if you linked all those three together for a finish. That would be some real good odds. But speaking of odds, you put those three together. Look at them. Look at those guys. Absolute animals, all three of them. And you got plus 186. And as always, that ends up being 1 unit. That's what we're going to be putting down. All the triple plays are always 1 unit. I might change that in the future, but for now, it's 1 unit, and it's Pyfer, Oki, and Rodriguez. Moving on to the next one, it is the Grand Slam. Just like the triple play, we pick the best ones from the edge, put them into a parlay, and go for the win. This time, of course, it's 4 guys or 4 people instead of 3 fighters. And this week, it opens up with Dan the Man 50K Ige at minus 175. Then we link that into Joe Pyfer. Yes, he's in both. I always double up on one guy at least. Today, that is Body Bags himself at minus 275. Then we've got, or actually technically Daniel Marcos is earlier on in the fights, but we've got Daniel Marcos minus 275, undefeated. Hopefully he can keep that streak going. Then we cap the parlay off with Devin Clark, who should be able to use his wrestling against Marcin Prachnio to get the win, and he's at minus 225 right now. And what do you get if you combine that group together? Well, you got plus 322. Fantastic odds. And as always with this bet, it is 0.5 units. I'm actually thinking of upping that one because we're doing so well with it that I want to maximize profit by putting more emphasis on it. But for now, I'm going to keep it going with 0.5 units. I don't want to mess anything up or mess around with the numbers just yet. I'll keep it with half a unit. Finally, I don't know why I always do that. Next up, it's the top dog of the week. This, of course, is where I pick my favorite underdog of the week. Shockingly high record of 9-4 so far. Hopefully we can keep that going with Bogdan Gushkov, one of my favorite names in the UFC, Bogdan Gushkov. He's at plus 110 right now. There aren't really a whole lot of underdogs that I'm liking this week, to be honest. There's a lot of pretty big favorites and a lot of slight favorites that probably should be slightly bigger favorites. Bogdan Gushkov is kind of the only one where I'm like, I think this underdog has a pretty good chance of cashing it in. He's going against Zach Pauga, and as I mentioned earlier in the stream, he has been knocked out. Bogdan Gushkov does have the knockout power. Pauga gets hit a decent amount. He's really only got the clinch work, so if Bogdan can shut down the clinch and the takedowns, he should be able to get a knockout. So I'm going plus 110. I'm going Bogdan Gushkov. And like I said, at 9-4, I could lose 5 times in a row and still be in the green. But that's not the goal here. The goal is to stack up those cash, stack up them dollar bills. So hopefully he can get the win. And then, of course, finally, and that's at 1 unit. Again, might be raising that up eventually, maybe even 2 units, because again, I've done so well with this in the past that it kind of looks like maybe I should actually be upping the number of units here. But we're sticking with 1 unit for now. Now, finally, we've got the sniper pick. That is my most confident pick of the week. We're at a shockingly low 9-4 right now for this. I can't believe I'm doing this bad. But I think that's just because I wasn't listening to my own rules, especially this week where I lost it with Thomas Peterson. Or last week. Didn't listen to my own rule. I'm listening to my rules this time. I really cannot imagine this man losing this fight. It's Dan Ige at minus 175. I truly cannot picture him losing this fight. He's not a debuting guy. He's super experienced. He's super reliable. He's just that guy. He is what's going to take us home into the profit, into the green, and yeah, give us our first big win with all these new graphics and such. And we're bringing him home with 6 units, 6 big ones. That would be a nice profit. I don't know what kind of profit it would be. It'd be like, I think, between 2 and 3 units or something. No, yeah, it's over 3 units. It's like 3.1 units or something like that. So that would be a fantastic profit to bring home. And yeah, that is it. That is it for the stream. Hopefully we can get some green going here. Rough week last week, but that's okay. That's okay. Look at that. We got through it nicely. It wasn't too bad. 2 hours and 12 minutes. Fuck. Yeah. I mean, that's all right, especially with a 14 fight card. And I actually ended up doing this faster than I did last time. So I'm happy with that. Hopefully we can cut down the time a little bit even more in the future. A little bit more in the future, I mean. And of course, I mean, there was 20 minutes there where I didn't have any sound, so I had to delete the stream and restart. So normally it won't end this late either. But that's just what happens. Them's the breaks. Oh, yeah. But hey, like I said, yeah, them's the breaks. But look at this. New camera. Got the remote here. The remote worked perfectly. Flawless victory for the remote. Delicious. So yeah, that is it. But there's a lot more than just that this week. I didn't do it this week, but I do want to in the future, which is do BFL. So like do a sniper pick for Battlefield Fight League. That's on tonight, actually. So that would have been nice, but I didn't get to do that. Didn't have any time. Same thing with other ones in the future. Like I hopefully can do one for the PFL Bellator card. That would be nice. Get that going, and then we can stack up even more wins in the sniper picks by expanding outside of the UFC as well. Oh, excuse me. And what else is this week? Oh yeah, Power Slap. Good Lord, Power Slap is tomorrow. It's drinking all the water. Power Slap is tomorrow. I might be giving out the blue bonuses for that. Not quite sure if I'm going to do that, because then it's like, oh, the first bonuses that I ever give out on this are going to be for Power Slap and not UFC. So I don't know if I'm going to do that or not. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. But I do want to give out blue bonuses this week on UFC. So I don't know what I'll do with it. Maybe I'll only post them on online, which would be, of course, linked below. That's Instagram, X, possibly TikTok if I end up doing a video version of it. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We're just playing it by ear. I mean, we're just, again, kind of getting a fresh start with this, putting things together. Because, I mean, I don't even have the intro yet. I don't have the outro. I don't have transitions in between. There's a couple other things that I want to be doing that I came up with last night. Actually, I came up with some pretty good ideas. But this is what we're doing for now, and we're going to stick with it and just build on top of it. But yeah, this is the new setup, and it's here to stay, and we'll just add on to it. So have fun watching Battlefield Fight League. Hopefully some people tune into that. Hopefully people watch some Power Slap. I can't wait to watch that tomorrow. Then you got the UFC on Saturday. And then next week, it's an even bigger week. You got UFC 298. You've got, actually, I don't know when that PFL Bellator card is. That might also be next week, which is why I was saying it was a better week. But now I'm actually not sure if that's when it is or not. Either way, that's it for me this week.